Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast. Darren Mitchell here on what is a beautiful Friday morning in the Macedon Ranges, albeit really cold, being in the middle of winter. And today, absolute pleasure to have on the podcast Mr. Shiraz Baboo, all the way from Toronto. And we're just talking just before, slightly different temperatures, although you were talking about the Melbourne winters you've experienced when you were over here in Australia a few years ago. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So in Toronto, we were talking, it's 9:30 at night at the moment where you are, 11:30 as we record this particular podcast. So sometimes they say, and you've got a big, for the people that are not looking at this, although it may be on YouTube at some stage in the future, there is a big painting of a lion behind Shiraz over his back. Is that a specified, does that have specific meaning for you?
Well, I was at an exhibition with these paintings, and there were all sorts of animals, scenery. There were other lions, but the lions were more of just the majestic, like looking proud and powerful.
Yeah.
And this was the only one with the lion in the roar. And I just looked at it and went, "That's mine." And they're
Nice.
like, "We haven't told you how much it is." I'm like, "No, that's mine." Like this came over like for this. And the paintings are actually they're made by African artists. The company buys up the paintings from the artist, brings them over to North America, marks up the prices quite a bit,
Yeah.
and then sells them, and then uses the money to free child slaves back in Africa again. So
Nice.
it's an amazing cause.
Sensational. So I love it. It just stands out. And then on the left-hand side, next to your energetic magic, you've got books. We've also got dolphins, and I noticed there's Batman up on the shelf as well.
Yep.
Do they have also specific significance?
Okay, so I mean, my logo, of course, uh, it's my logo. My
Of
book,
course.
I want people to see my book. Batman is up there, and I don't know if you caught that the bookshelf is the Superman symbol.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I just noticed that. I'm thinking that's a very interesting design shelf, but it is a Superman. Well done.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So, and Batman's there because what my one of my talks that I do, uh, if you've been to speaker talks and if you see people that are trained in speaking, a lot of times they'll be talking about how good things are, and then they'll say, "But it wasn't always like that."
Yeah.
And I've heard that phrase over and over, but it wasn't always like that. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, I want something different. So when I tell my story, I say I'll talk about some of the good things that are going on. Then I said, but I had to go through a dark night of the soul, and that's the whole reason Batman is there.
Like it.
So
I like it. It also differentiates yourself against everybody else because everybody else says, "Hey, I wasn't always like that." You're doing something completely different, which is
yeah,
an attention grabber. So really looking forward to this conversation, Shiraz. And when I looked at the booking form and you and I had a bit of correspondence beforehand, a reality interventionist,
yes,
which is a really interesting title. And you work with entrepreneurs, you work with predominantly female coaches, helping them to break through their own reality barriers, if you like.
yes,
This is going to be a fascinating conversation because I know people listening to this who are in sales and sales leadership or have aspirations to do better than they are right now are probably grappling with, so what are the reasons as to why I'm not advanced or not further advanced than where I thought I was going to be? And sometimes what they think is not necessarily, I'm sure we're going to delve into this, is not
yeah.
necessarily what's holding them back. So before we
Most of the
jump
time,
into this,
actually.
yeah, yeah, love to get a little bit of your background and what led you to this in terms of working in this particular space, and where did the, I guess, the concept of energetic magic sort of come from? Was it something that just evolved, or was it an event that happened that said, "Hey, this is my niche"?
It was a few different events. The first one was a long-term one, which is when I, at the age of 22, I was in university and I was a bodybuilder. I was studying to be a doctor, and I got arthritis. I had to drop out of school, and it wasn't just like pain in my shoulders. It was every single joint in my body.
Wow.
So yeah, so top of the head, tips of the toes. There were nights I'd spend sipping my dinner through a straw because my jaw was so swollen and painful I couldn't chew.
Wow.
So yeah, and it lasted for about it was like 18 years of this. It would go into remission at times, and I could start living more of a normal life, and then it would just hit me hard again. Bones were deteriorating, losing my cartilage. Eventually, I was grinding bone on bone. So it was a rough time, right? And I'm trying everything, medication, diet, supplements, all the things you would do. Nothing's working,
Wow.
right? So eventually I found out about a program called combined therapy. I was talking to my dad one night and I said, "Is there anything we haven't looked at, something new that's come up?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I just heard about this program." And I said, "They help with arthritis?" And he goes, "No, they cure all diseases." And I'm like, "What?" Like, how can they cure all diseases? Why aren't they internationally famous? Like, what is going on here? And so I get on a plane and I head over to this. Apparently, there's centers in India. I head over to India and I meet the guy that runs the program, and he just sits me down and talks to me with me for 2 weeks,
Two
right?
weeks.
2 weeks, right? And I'm like, I'm still wondering what gives because he's asked me all these questions, like being with a psychiatrist, right? And I'm expecting like my father's like, they cure all diseases. I'm expecting a whole diet regimen, energy healing. Like there's got to be, and he's just talking to me. Like, what is happening here?
Wow.
So yeah, and then after the 2 weeks, he says, "Well, Shiraz, you believe you're responsible for everyone in your life," and I'm like, "No, I don't." Right? And he said, "No, I know you don't think you do, but from everything you've told me, you've created this belief that you need to be responsible for everyone. And it
Mm.
started when you were about 8 years old."
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I know I'm a responsible guy. I'm always a designated driver. I will always make sure my friends get home safe. Like, but I don't think I'm responsible for everyone. That's like crazy. That's over the top. And then I said, but even if I am, what's that got to do with arthritis? There's no relationship to that.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, no, no, no. See, because you don't want to be responsible for everyone. I went, yeah. He said, and if you're lying in bed in pain, you don't have to be responsible for anyone and you don't have to feel guilty about it. Your arthritis isn't your problem, it's your solution.
Mm.
And I
Wow.
was just like, that's messed up. It's,
Messed up. So arthritis, and at the age of 22, when you're a bodybuilder and studying to be a doctor,
yeah,
leading up to that point, was there any indications that there was something physically changing that would give you
no,
it just came on?
it just came on.
Wow.
So, and when I look back at it, it was basically every time I met new people, I became responsible for them.
Yeah.
So eventually I hit a tipping point where it just became too much.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so then the arthritis came on, and then that's just was my life there.
And when we're talking about being responsible for people, because a lot of there's probably a lot of different definitions around being responsible for them. Is it you're always, as you said before, wanting to make sure that people are okay, being a designated driver, or was it more than that in terms of you wanted to help solve people's problems, you wanted to rescue people and stuff like that? How did it sort of play out when you're looking back?
So I had what I call the savior complex. I loved to save people, to rescue them. Like if
Yeah,
people were having problems, I wanted to help in any way I can. And of course there were times where there's nothing I could do or they didn't want the help, and that
yeah,
hit me with anxiety because now I'm like, I'm supposed to be helping everyone.
yeah.
And eventually it just became too much pressure.
Wow. And
Yeah,
so the physical, I guess, manifestation of that was your body responded in a way to actually get you to the point where you could be lying in bed, afflicted by these physical conditions, so that you weren't in a position to go and help people.
exactly. And
Yeah.
so now because here's what it comes down to is your mind, it avoids emotional distress.
Mm.
And it does not care about physical circumstances. So it will do anything to your life to make sure you don't go into emotional distress.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really the responsibility itself that I was avoiding, it was the guilt that I couldn't be responsible for
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
So when I found that out, I just made the decision, you know what? Okay, if that's what's happening, I'm not going to be responsible for anyone.
Yeah.
And I made that decision. It was a solid, like, that's what's happening in my life right now. Forget it. No more responsibility. Woke up the next morning, no pain, no inflammation. Like the arthritis is just gone. Now, the damage to my body was still there,
Yeah.
but the arthritis itself was gone.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I
Yeah.
I took away the actual problem, right? So,
There are people listening to this, and I'm sure you've shared this story, thousands of times.
yeah,
When you share that story, because there'll be a lot of people that find it difficult to believe that. Now, it could be their own belief systems in terms of whether they're theologians or whether theologians, whether they're based on theology, or whether they're spiritual or whether they're scientific based. Think how does that actually work? It probably defies what most people think is actually possible. When you woke up that next morning, having had the Indian gentleman talk to you for 2 weeks, and you're thinking, hang on, there's no diet stuff here. He's just talking to me, and he's made this realization, and you've woken up the next day and there's no pain, and for
yeah,
all intents and purposes, the arthritis has moved on.
yeah.
What was your thought process then? What was the feeling you had? Was it something of, oh my God, or was it, this can't be real?
It was more like this can't be real. I'm freaking out, right?
Yep.
I'm testing my body. I'm anticipating pain to be there. There's no pain coming in. And it was just like I was still in this place of just being stunned. Like, how the hell is this happening?
Yeah.
And then I went out, I tested it. There was a track there. And I've been on that track every day because I'm trying to stay fit, but I'm walking like I'm 70, this old hunched over shuffle. And then that day, I'm just racing around the track. I'm passing people, and they're all looking at me because they've seen me for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And like, what's going on? So,
You must have been taking some sort of elixir or some sort of drug. Just one day to the next.
yeah.
So when you look back on that, I'm sure you've done a lot of reflection and you've dug into this a lot. Um, what did you discover about yourself that perhaps you were maybe bottling up or not necessarily dealing with leading into that experience?
So I don't think I was bottling anything up. It's just having that belief there and having it running my life.
Mm,
Uh, it led to me looking into more of this. And so this isn't just about illness. This is about everything.
yeah.
Right. So if you have fears of what emotionally could happen if you make a lot of money, for instance, then you'll keep yourself from making money.
Mm,
If you have fears about what's going to happen in a relationship, you'll make sure you don't have a relationship where you have very short relationships so things don't get too intense.
yeah.
And so every physical problem that's showing up in your life right now, it's money, health, relationships, where you live, whatever it is, that's always a solution for an emotional problem you're not looking at.
Mm,
And when you look at it that way, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start asking, well, why do I want this to happen?
yeah.
Right. And that's going to lead you down the path to what's actually going on.
And as part of that, because what you were talking about was you wanted to take a, take responsibility for everybody around you. But
Yep.
then the realization was, well, maybe I'm not in a position to take responsibility for everybody around me. What I'm responsible for is me, but I'm not going to not serve people, but I'm just going to do it in a different way.
Yep.
How did that kind of change then? And from that experience as a 22-year-old, what did you end up continuing with the medical, becoming a doctor, or did you change path?
No, no, I changed paths. While I had the arthritis, I changed paths to computers because I could sit at a desk and not have to move around and work
Yeah,
in the lab and everything. Especially your arthritis and you're trying to hold beakers and stuff. It's not a good deal there. And so yeah, so I went back to work. And that was the funny thing is I've got this big awareness, and you'd think I would now go full on into it, but I just went back to work doing computers because I'm like, I can go to work and I don't have to be in pain. Let me just do this for a while.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So it didn't really strike me as this is where I'm going to take my career now and helping people with this.
yeah.
So yeah, and I just continued with that. there was another issue that had been going on through my life as well, and this is what really just sort of amped things up, is that uh, I kept getting stopped whenever I crossed borders, right? And the first time was when I was 22 years old. My friends and I had gone to Rio to go celebrate Christmas,
Yep.
New Year's, and coming back. And after we got back through customs, the customs agent came up and said, "We need to ask you more questions."
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Oh, guys, they need to ask us more questions." And he goes, "No, no, not them, just you."
Yeah. Okay.
My friends who were white and I'm black, and I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And then every time I crossed the border, extra questions, luggage searched, person searched, and it was just frustrating. And I even one time it was on the Euro and I was just going from train to train, and they pulled me over and stopped me. And I'm like, "Why aren't you stopping everyone else?" And the guy's like, "I'm just doing my job." They're like, "Why aren't you stopping everyone else? Is this a black check?" And the guy's like, "Look, I'm just doing what my boss told me." I said, "Did your boss tell you to stop the black people?" He goes, "Yeah, my boss told me." So I've got this evidence. This is racism.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
keep getting stopped at work because it's racism. And then it just keeps happening and happening. And then finally, I'm talking to one of my coaches and I'm telling him the latest border crossing story. And he looks at me, he goes, "Shiraz, you ready to step out of that story?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And here's the thing. He taught me about stories, how everything in your life is a story. We think we have good stories and we think we have bad stories.
Mm.
But to our unconscious mind, there's only good stories. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as that story. Right. And so the whole thing is you have to find out the reason why it's a good story. So, I mean, you deal with sales leaders and people want to make money.
Mm.
But I found out people think they want to make money. They don't actually want to make money. Right? So, so for instance, like when I work with people, they come to me to help make more money. One of the things I say is, "Well, what happens if you're making an extra $100,000 a year?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh my God, that's fabulous. I can clear my debt. I'd feel a lot freer. I could support my family." It's like, and and then I said, "So is it okay if people started coming up and asking you for money?" And they're like, "What?"
Mm.
Like, "Well, you make extra $1,000. You're gonna have people saying, 'Hey, can you invest in my business? Can you give to my charity?' Your family might say, 'Hey, you got to take care of us now. You're making so much money.'" And they're like, "Oh God, no, I would hate that." I'm like, "Then you don't want to make money."
There you go.
Right? Because and the more emotionally impacted you are by those scenarios, the further away from having a lot of money you will take yourself.
Yeah.
So here's a reason not to have money. Like think of it as a building block. Let's not have money because I don't want that to happen. Then someone complains about how much they have to pay in taxes, and you're like, "I don't want to pay that much in taxes." And your mind says, "Well, if we don't make a lot of money, we don't have to pay taxes." Right? And then your friends want to go out someplace you don't want to actually go. Right? And so you're like, "Oh, but I hate saying no to them. I feel guilty for saying no to my friends. I should really want to hang out with them." But then you think, "Oh my God, I can tell them I can't afford it because I don't have a lot of money and I'm not
Mm.
lying. So I don't have to feel guilty. So guys, sorry, I can't afford it." Now your mind says, "Let's keep that in our back pocket. Let's stay at this level of income so we can always have that excuse to fall back on."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you get taught you have to work hard to make money. You have to work hard to be successful, which means in order to be more successful, you have to work harder.
Mm.
So if you're already working hard and your mind's saying, "Well, if I want to be more successful, I got to work harder. I'm already tired. I'm doing 40-hour weeks or 80-hour weeks." Then it says like, "No, let's not make the money. Let's put another building block on." So you're putting block after block after block as to why you don't want to make money. Meanwhile, consciously, you're like, "Why can't I make money?" And you're
Yeah.
trying all the physical things. "I'm going to try this new automation. I'm going to work with this coach. But you're not solving the actual problem as that there's all these reasons why you don't want to make money.
Yeah. And
So,
that's the story we tell ourselves.
yep.
And the story that you then realized when your friend said, "Hey, you're going to stop telling your story to yourself," where
Yeah.
you're
So
getting
he's
stopped. It was,
So I couldn't figure out what's the benefit here? There's no benefit to getting stopped and getting searched and getting, get my luggage searched. And then he looks at me and goes, "Shiraz, when you tell your border crossing stories to people, you light up. You feed off their emotional reaction to you. It feels like love.
yeah,
And you can't keep telling the same story all the time because they'll get bored. So you have to keep getting stopped at border after border so you have fresh material to
create
keep
new
feeling love."
stories.
And he was right. Like because I remember like how when I see people's expressions, it's just like I like, "Yeah, you're gonna hear, listen, you wait till you hear this story. This is gonna be good." Right. And I get the attention, I get the compassion, I get the love. And so I said, "Okay, you know what? I'm not gonna get I'm not gonna get love from adversity anymore. I'm going to
Mm.
start creating massive success. I'm going to get the love from people celebrating my success. I'm
Yeah.
going to hang out with people that support that success.
Yeah.
And when I made that decision, I stopped getting stopped at borders.
Wow.
Yeah.
Instantly like that.
It was instant. It was crazy too, because I was just like, what just happened? But then I started looking at it and I said, okay, here's one thing I realized. Did you know that there are non-white customs agents?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't, because I was unconsciously lining myself up with the white ones so that they
Ah,
could
so they could actually
get that.
come and target you.
Yeah,
So it was almost like Shiraz, you had this big antenna and it says, pick
yeah,
me, pick me, pick
pick
me.
me. And then the other thing is, what are customs agents trained for? To look for people that are suspicious, that are not relaxed, looking out of character. What am I doing when I come into the border? Who's going to pick me? Who's the one
Yeah,
that's going to pull me over? That's suspicious behavior. So of course they're coming after me. So I
that's it.
pulled that whole thing into my reality.
That's it. That's it. And that's the story. And when you think about that's a great analogy and it's a great story because there'll be people around the world every single day doing very similar things, but in different environments.
Yeah,
It's like going into seeing a vice president or a president of an organization that you've never met before and bringing a certain energy in to say, well, I'm not worthy. Now that comes across potentially in just not just the words you speak, but also the whole being and the energy you bring into that particular environment where you create a thought process and maybe in the minds of that vice president that this person is completely out of their depth. So this is an opportunity for me to either help them, lift them up, or squash them,
yeah,
right?
yes,
And so it's so fascinating that the stories we end up telling ourselves every single day that is probably, and I'd love your take on this, is probably designed to keep us safe, but
absolutely.
doesn't necessarily serve us.
No, no, your mind is priorities to keep you safe, and it will do everything it can to keep you safe, including kill you.
Wow,
Yeah, like
that's a
that's
bit extreme. There's
it
there's
is.
like no coming back from that.
But this is what people do. Like I was having a discussion with someone. She had cancer, right? And I was trying to help her out for a friend. She wasn't actually a client. And so I talked to her about it and I said, okay, so what if the cancer went away tomorrow? You had a full recovery and you could go back to work. And she looks at me, she goes, I would rather die than go back to that job. And I'm like, oh,
Wow.
well, now we know why you have cancer. Because it wasn't like I'd rather be sick until I retire or something like it was, I would rather die than go back to that job. It was she specifically manifested something to kill her because she hated her job so much. She couldn't quit it. Now, and this is the thing. I said, well, why did you just quit your job? Oh, I can't quit it. I've been working there for 35 years. I've got my pension going. I will lose my pension. I'm like, well, what if you had another job that paid way more? It's just like, there's no way I'm ever going to find a job like that. Like every excuse I gave her to create something else, she shot it down. The
Yeah,
choices were cancer or go back to that job.
man. And she would rather be afflicted by that and eventually
Yeah,
potentially have it take her life than
yeah,
deal with that job. Wow.
yeah.
That's nuts.
But this is what people do.
Well, it just makes me wonder, in fact, how many of us actually do this.
So anyone that's not getting their results is addicted to something. They're trying to avoid emotional distress, or like with me at the border, they're looking for a source of an emotional fix.
Yeah,
And it's the thing, it is an addiction. I was
yeah.
addicted to those fixes.
Mm,
And, and it can get really insidious. Like, let's say, going back to the money thing, there are people that live paycheck to paycheck.
yeah,
And some of them, like, they're just making that payment at the end of the month.
yeah,
So in that case, what happens is you're struggling, you get out of the struggle, you pay the bills. And when you pay the bills because you just pulled it off the last minute, you get hit with dopamine, you get hit with
yeah.
adrenaline, you get hit with oxytocin, and your whole body goes, oh my God, that felt amazing. Let's do it again.
Mm,
So you unconsciously start doing it month after month to get your fix at the end of the month,
yeah,
right? But then it gets worse because, like any addiction, you build up a tolerance. So eventually your mind's and your body's like, this isn't enough. So you can make it worse through the month, or you can add in family problems, or you can throw illness on top. What can we do to make this month so bad so that we feel so good at the end of the month? And people are wondering, well, like you think it's circumstance. You think it's just what the cards are dealt for you, but you're actually creating everything to get an addictive fix at the end of the month.
Wow. It's
So,
so I talk a lot to leaders about um having to I don't specifically talk about them creating their reality. What I talk to them about is them being able to define reality and then based on that, thinking about what they can tangibly do to alter that reality moving forward, but use that as a platform. But through this conversation, what I'm getting a sense of is all of us, irrespective of the role we play, um, we have the tendency to create our own reality based on what our set of beliefs are, which
yes,
probably have been instilled in us by others in our early formative years.
yes.
So when you went back and looked at so all the information you shared with the Indian gentleman, do you call it was he called a guru in India or
He was a doctor.
was he a
I just
doctor?
called him
Okay.
Dr. Ganza. Yeah. So
Did he based on that story identify something that happened at 8 years old? So was there in your history that made you realize there was an event that
yeah.
happened around that time that said that was the catalyst?
So when I was eight, my mom got arthritis when I was a kid,
Mm,
and it started to get worse and worse. And when I was 8 years old is when I made a decision. I need to take care of my mom. Now, there's only so much an 8-year-old can do to take care of their mom, but the decision was made at that in that time. And then the logical thing was, well, if I have to take care of my mom because she can't really take care of me, I also have to take care of my brother and my sister. And then I added in my dad, and then I added in my cousins, and then I added in my friend, and I just kept adding people until the belief became I just need to take care of everyone.
mm, yeah. So that's where it originated from.
Yep.
Wow. So one of the things that I'm thinking, people listening to this is going, okay, so if we are responsible for the reality that we create, and
Yep.
even though we might say to ourselves, hey, we don't want to be creating this reality. I'm not happy with where I'm at. My business is not where it's at. My sales team is not where it needs to be. I don't like this. Don't tell me, Shiraz, that I've created this. With because I know that you do a lot of work around addictions and people struggling with addiction, and addiction is not necessarily just as most people would think about in terms of addicted to substances and stuff like that. It's addiction to behaviors and all sorts of other things as well. What is the first step in, I guess, creating a new reality? Because I'd love to talk about any specific thoughts and any specific strategies people can work on irrespective of where they're at right now, to help them make progress. Now, it may not be instantaneous results like you had, but at least making progress. Um,
Yeah. And that's important too, because sometimes it's instantaneous and sometimes it's a journey. Like
yeah,
getting rid of the arthritis was instantaneous. Repairing my body has been a journey. It's been
yes,
a decade-long journey, but I'm getting healthier and healthier all the time.
nice.
And the other thing is, just so we're clear, I don't work with people with like those physical addictions like alcohol, drugs, anything. I work specifically with reality addictions as it pertains to business, so people
Yeah,
can excel in their business.
yeah,
And number one is you're going to be addicted to something. It's your body's natural state. The problem is that we don't regularly choose what we're addicted to. We just get stuck in the addiction. When you choose what you're going to be addicted to, like when I chose, I'm going to be addicted to people celebrating my successes rather than my struggles crossing the borders. My body's looking for an addiction. So I'm like, this is the addiction now. This is the new one. Let's go with this.
yeah,
And I built up that addiction. So now I keep creating successes so that I can get so people go, hey, way to go, and I can get my fix, right?
yeah, yeah.
So that's number one is that you're going to be addicted to something. So don't try to just break out of the addiction and hope that you'll not be addicted to something. You want to choose it. Um, the other thing is, ask yourself, and it's your subconscious is going to hide this from you, but you can't, a lot of people can sort of start getting awareness of it. Why do I want this? What is the benefit I'm not seeing in the reality I'm creating? Right.
Mm.
And when you phrase the question that way, things can start to show up that you didn't notice before.
So just on that one, so
Yeah.
with that, are you saying if I identify, okay, I'm not getting the business results that I want right now,
Yeah.
is part of that process asking yourself, why do I want this? Which
Yeah.
presupposes that I've created this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the thing. When you take 100% responsibility for everything that's showing up in your life, you have 100% power to change anything. If you
Yes.
don't take 100%, then you're stuck in a victim mode and there's nothing you can do to change your life,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
And nothing changes.
So yeah, nothing changes.
Yeah.
So when you are saying, okay, why do I want this? One of the other things that can get you there is when you think about the big goal you want, the amount of money you want, the level of success. What are the as long as is in there?
Hmm.
I'd love the money as long as no one asks for money, right?
Okay.
I would love to have great success as long as I don't have to work too hard.
Yeah.
Every as long as is a reason why you don't want it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how, because that puts limitations on or conditions attached.
Yeah.
So if we're going to take 100% responsibility for where we're at and what we've created, that gives us power to then be able to create a different reality. We
Yep.
have to do it irrespective of any perceived conditions and just move those conditions out of the way. So if me becoming more successful, and as you said before, if me being able to generate an extra $100,000 per year, if that equated to others within my environment coming to me and asking for assistance, then that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
But that's a reframe.
Yeah. So they can come up and then you can just say no.
Yeah,
Right. And then there's some people that come up, you actually say, yeah, I'd love to help you out because then
yeah,
that feels light and fun rather than, oh, I've got to help these people out.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So why do I want this? As long as
Yeah.
what other key, I guess, key questions or key things or concepts that we should be conscious of as we go through this process?
Think about what the cliches are that you've been taught that are limiting. Like you
Okay.
have to work hard to succeed. You don't have to work hard to succeed. You have to be willing to work hard to succeed.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be here at 9:30 at night to do this, like, right?
Well,
So
that's because yeah, apparently you said that was the only time it was available in the calendar.
and for a while, a couple of years in my business, I had what was called last Mondays, where I would work the last Monday of the month. And I do a bunch of webinars so that I could catch you at whatever time zone you're in.
Yeah.
And the first webinar started at 9 a.m. The last webinar ended at 11 p.m.
Wow.
So I did 14-hour days the last Monday of every month for like 2 years, right? And it brought more clients, it increased my business. And then finally I'm like, okay, I'm at a level now that I don't need to do this. I can pull back.
Yep.
And now I do it just twice a day.
Okay. Yep.
And I changed the date I do it, but it's now at this point where okay, I did the work and now I can start to just enjoy the fruits of the labor, like it's harvest time.
Mm.
And now my priority right now is I want to create a business where I don't ever say, oh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. So whenever I feel that way, I look, can I eliminate that out of what I have to do? If
Yeah.
not, can it be automated? If not, can I give it to my VAs?
Yeah.
Right. And so my goal is by the end of the summer, there's going to be nothing in my business where I go, oh, I don't want to do that. It'll just
Yeah.
all be the joyous parts.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Which means you've created a whole new reality.
Yep.
And so when that happens, what's the obvious, I mean, it might sound like an obvious question. What is the byproduct of that? Because I'm sure for many people this is a process because there might be a lot of unlearning that people have to
Yeah.
go through because we'll still have that self-talk. We might still have that doubt, that
Mhm.
inner voice that says, you know what, you're not as good as perhaps you perceive or you're giving the people the perception that you are. So just remember
Yeah.
who you are and where you come from, sunshine.
So, but the byproduct is freedom
Yeah,
and certainty. And here's the thing, when there's 100% absolute certainty of what's going to happen, it happens.
yeah,
Right. And people know this, they use this, they just don't realize that they use it all the time. So like if you're about to land a sale and then it falls through, you'll hear people go, oh my God, this always happens. Right at the last minute they pull it. There's absolute certainty there. And so they keep recreating it.
yes,
Right. So you want to have absolute certainty in the good things.
yeah, 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 and because there will be some deals in the sales context that doesn't come
Yeah.
up, but when what you're saying is when that happens, be very conscious of the language you use when that
Yeah.
happens. Oh, this always happens to me. Oh, I'm always late. This never tends to work out for me. Why this? Why
Yeah.
me? Oh my God.
And here's the thing. That's also addiction because when you're like, this always happens to me and this never works out, whenever that happens, you get to be right.
Mm,
And whenever you're right, you get a hit of dopamine. So you
yeah.
create a dopamine addiction to that story that you've created.
Which in a weird sort of way creates a level of certainty for you because it's known, it's always happened. There's my pattern.
Yep,
And maybe there are people who are really they're shit scared on what if I actually was what if I actually was a lot better and had more capability than I'm giving myself credit for? Would I be able to handle that? I'm not sure I
that's another
could.
thing.
So I will
I see that
sabotage
happen.
myself.
Yep, I see that happen all the time. And that leads to another thing that stops people. What's everyone going to think of me?
Mm,
What's everyone going to want from me?
mm,
Right. So if you start functioning at a higher level, the biggest fear for a lot of people is now everyone's going to expect you to function at that higher level and expect bigger and better things from you. And you might disappoint them if you don't keep showing up that way.
yeah.
And so now your worry about what everyone else is going to think makes you stop, makes you cut off. Like you could even start seeing yourself go up, and then you'll just cut it off and go back down
Mm,
because you start to see, oh no, 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 what are they going to think?
yeah.
Right.
That's
So when
nuts.
you stop giving a crap about what people think, you create freedom. Now, you still want to care about people, just don't care what
Yes.
they think,
Yes.
right? So big difference there.
Or like I share with clients of mine, pick a small group of people who you surround yourself with, who are your inner circle, who you will take, I guess, counsel from,
Yep.
but they're not the ones that are going to judge you, but they will give you good feedback. So you probably
Yes.
just in some way do care about what they think, particularly if they're partners, family, friends, and stuff like that. But if you're in a business environment, who cares what you think of me? I know where I'm at and know what I'm doing and I know what I'm trying to achieve.
See, the thing is, it's not just the business environment. So I worked with a guy a few, oh God, I guess 10 years, 10, 15 years back. And we got approached by Paramount at the time we were trying to create children's animated television shows.
Hmm.
And this guy's a genius, except he had these limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And he went to a G.I. Joe convention with a fake trailer for a G.I. Joe movie using the dolls, just using the dolls, an animated thing with the dolls, and filmed it just by like moving the dolls around by hand and stuff. He got it played there. I don't know how he got it played at this convention. And the crowd went insane. When is
Wow.
that coming out, right? So Paramount, the G.I. Joe movie was about to come out. Paramount comes to us and said, we saw what you did at that convention. Can you make a 20-minute short using the dolls? And we'll give you the new dolls that we're going to sell for the movie, and you can use them. And so it'll be a trailer slash commercial like thing. And we're like, yeah, yeah, absolutely, we'll do it. So they sent us the dolls, and he already had a collection of G.I. Joe dolls, so we used a bunch of his old dolls too. And I don't know if you know this, but the most popular doll, the one that has the most versions, is Cobra Commander.
Okay.
There's like 20 different Cobra Commander dolls. Of like you'd think it would be one of the heroes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So we filmed this thing. It's called Invasion of Cobra Island. You can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And one of the little things we did is every time there was a new scene with Cobra Commander, we'd use a different doll. So we'd keep doing costume changes. And some people got the joke. Some people were wondering what the hell is going on, but it was just a lot
Yeah.
of fun doing it. And the response was insane. They loved it. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments. This is amazing. Best thing I've seen. Brings me back to when I was a childhood. Better than the movie. Like it was crazy. In those hundreds and hundreds of comments, there were 12 comments that were piece of crap. Can't believe Paramount paid for this. Who do these people think they are? And he lost his mind.
Wow.
How do we get rid of these comments? It's like not our channel, it's Paramount's channel. They stay on. He said,
Yeah.
well, can't we shut them up? Can't we like? And I could see he was like, this is his work, this is his pride
Mm,
and joy. How could people
mm.
be dissing it? And so that happened. And then G.I. Joe 2 was coming out. And Paramount approached us again and said, can you do another one? And he turned them down.
Wow.
Now, he had legitimate excuses, got other projects going. They're not offering as much money as I wanted them to. We'd essentially be making nothing off it. The time is no good. But I could see he did not want to see negative comments again.
Yeah.
He doesn't know who these people are,
Yeah.
but he cared what they thought. He
Yeah.
cared what other people thought. So just eliminated a relationship with Paramount, right?
Wow. And
Yeah,
most people will be thinking, hey, what a sensational opportunity that would be. Who knows
yeah,
where it could go from there? And the fact
yeah,
they came back and asked him to do another one
yeah,
off the back of a fake trailer at a convention, I'm thinking, that is left of field thinking. But
yeah,
that just goes to show the power of, I guess, people's belief systems that, hey, I don't want to be criticized. So therefore, because I don't want to be criticized, I'm not going to put myself out there to be
yeah,
criticized. I'm going to play it safe. Because at least that for me is certainty.
yeah. And people don't realize they're doing this. They think they're coming up with excuses, or it's circumstances, or a big thing's about to happen and they slept in or got sick, or got the dates wrong. And all of that is just unconscious behavior to keep you from creating that level of success. And it
Yeah.
looks like circumstance.
Yes. And I wonder with this particular person, as an example, whether that was eating up inside of him in terms of, you know what, I really wanted to do that, but something was holding him back that prevented him from doing that. And how did that then manifest in other things that he was doing? Did it start to
Yeah,
affect other elements of his life, his business?
it affects other elements. And and I've watched it with him, I've watched it with other people where they can get to a certain level of success, but anytime it's further, then something pushes them back. And it's happened with me too. Um, 2010, I figured out a way to make $1 million a year.
Yeah,
And I was only at $100,000 at the time. And and I managed to on uh, get the numbers for Bob Proctor,
yeah,
John Assaraf, right? A few other people, and got into conversations about them about a new app because this is 2010.
yeah,
Apps are just coming out.
yeah,
And so I'm thinking I'm going to be making $1 million a year. And I quit my job. I'm developing the app. I'm having negotiations, and my income went from $100,000 a year to $0 a year for 2 years. All right, ate through my savings because when you think you're about to make $1 million, you don't spend like you're only making zero. You think
yeah,
it's just any day now.
yeah,
And it wasn't until later, like I got to the point where I was putting one credit card to pay the other credit card. I was in so much debt, it was crazy. And then I let go of the whole thing, and and then my income came back up to $100,000 a year and just cruised at that level again. Years later, working with a coach, we found out that when I was a teenager, my friends, and when he started talking about it, I remembered the conversations. But of course, I blocked it out. They said, Shiraz, you're intelligent, you're creative. We have no doubt you're going to be making millions of dollars. You're going to have the house on the beach. You're going to be flying around the world. You're going to have such a great life. And we get to come hang out with you. We'll come hang at your place. We'll travel with you. And I just thought, oh my God, they're all going to leech off me. Right? As soon as I make it big, they are going to descend. I will have no privacy. They'll force their way onto traveling with me. And so my mind said, $100,000, we can live comfortably, but
yes,
we don't have to worry about them invading.
no, and drinking my
Right?
beer.
Yeah. And so when I let go of that belief, and this was like 2022 is when we finally figured this out.
Mm,
I let go of that belief and said, if they want to come hang out, I can say no. And I don't have to, again, I don't have to feel guilty about it. It's about
yeah,
the emotions. By 2023, I was doing $200,000 a year. By and by the end of 2023, I did $1 million in sales
yeah,
because that belief was holding everything in place. Right.
yeah.
And it was just crazy. I was like, that was it.
So this is a phenomenal conversation because, as you alluded to before, a lot of people look for I guess, the fixes, automation. Do I get I'll get a digital agency or I'll get a specialist coach in that's going to do all the work for me. Um, when you look at all that sort of stuff and the work that you do, particularly now working with entrepreneurs and successful female coaches that are helping them break through their own ceilings. When you look at all of that stuff, how do you look at things like automation? And in my world, it's similar to sales processes or CRM systems or enablers in technology that help sales teams and sales organizations improve.
Yeah.
are we focusing on the wrong thing? And that is, are we looking at the external stuff, thinking that that's going to be the solution to our problem, rather than looking internally and saying, you know what, the problem is my solution.
So it's a combination because the external stuff can help you create success. But if you don't fix the internal, it won't last.
Yeah,
You will find a way to sabotage it, especially if you get something that's guaranteed to work. It'll work until you decide to screw it up.
yeah,
So, for the most part, if you're not getting there, then your beliefs are too strong for you to even start using those things. You'll find excuses. I can't afford to work with this person, even though paying that person is going to be the thing that changes everything,
yeah,
right? You'll find all the excuses to stay exactly where you are. But if you look at it, you've seen a bunch of celebrities that, they got stardom overnight. They didn't have enough time to shift their mindset. Now they have an alcohol problem or a drug problem. It's to
yeah,
get themselves back to where it's comfortable,
yeah,
right? And I've seen this with business people, and there's all this, and sometimes they just justify it. Like I remember a business guy, he was determined to get to $1 million, and then he'd be happy. And he got to $1 million and he still wasn't happy. But at the same time, he was working his butt off because his belief was, I have to show people how hard I work to justify how much money I'm making.
yeah,
He hit it, but then he just didn't have a life, and because the stories were locked in there.
yeah, 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 which is nuts, absolutely
Yeah.
nuts. So as we bring this into a close, people listening to this, and we've talked about a couple of key questions such as why do I want this as long as, etc., etc. Um, leaving people with some key either key principles or things that they can start on, because there might be people listening to this right now thinking, you know what, Shiraz, I'm not at the level that I want to be, and I desperately want to get to the next level of performance, but I'm not quite sure what is holding me back. Is it other things, other key principles, or other key pieces of guidance and advice you can give people in order to at least start making that progress?
Well, if I could do a shameless plug, there's my
Please.
book, How to Rewrite Reality. I lay out like a lot of this out in the book. So we talk about not just like things we talk about, like as long as it's people getting stuck if in ever since. So they're using that as an excuse. Ever since I broke my leg, or ever since my wife left me, they're using that as things to stay stuck.
Yeah.
Um, if only this would change, if only, like, now you're coming up with these fake scenarios that I discuss all these things in there, and the fact that you're not only addicted to a certain way of living, you're addicted to specific emotions,
Mm,
right? And so, like, this has actually been scientifically proven now. If you read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza,
yeah.
he goes into the science of it, that we go through all these different emotions, but there's a specific emotion that you have more than any other emotion. That's your default emotion. And your cells actually create receptors for the chemicals that your body emits when you're having that emotion. So let's say you're frustrated all the time. My business isn't going right, and I'm trying as hard as I can, and it's leading to problems at home, and I'm just frustrated all the time. And then you decide, I'm done. I'm done being frustrated. I'm going to go with gratitude. I'm going to have a gratitude journal and do gratitude exercises. I'm going to stay gratitude. Then the frustration chemicals don't hit your cells anymore.
Mm,
And the receptors are designed specifically for those chemicals. So
yeah.
they send a signal, your cells send a signal to your brain saying, make this person frustrated. We need our fix. So something frustrates you, your chemicals flood your body goes, oh, thank God. Then you're just even more frustrated because you've been trying to be grateful. Then you get another hit, the chemicals hit your body, and you're stuck in this. So you have to actually stay in gratitude long enough for your cells to go into so much withdrawal that they like, this is not working. We have to change the receptors. What chemicals available? Gratitude chemicals. Change the receptors to gratitude. And now you're addicted to gratitude. So that when
Mm,
frustration comes up, your body goes, that's not who we are. Let's make this person grateful again.
mm, mm. And is there science to, because what you're talking about there is almost habit forming. Um,
Yep.
is there science? Because I've heard lots of different stories around, well, it takes 14 days to create a habit, it takes 60 days to create a habit.
Yep.
How do we know from a scientific point of view or from an energy point of view when we've made that flip from, you know what, I'm no longer frustrated, I'm now superseding that with such things like gratitude.
Mm.
How do I know that? So is there a length of time, or is just as long as it
There,
takes?
it's different for each person. I mean, it's just like people that have an alcohol addiction. They could be have their chit and it's like 3 years, and then something bad happens, and then they're suddenly at day one again. This is it. You're treating it like an actual addiction.
Yeah.
But however, when you get to that point where you're just grateful all the time, you've reached that point. You're not trying anymore. You just feel grateful.
Mm.
And you know at that point you've changed the receptors on your cells. And
Yeah.
and now knowing the science, it even makes me feel good. Like for me, it's not gratitude, it's actually laughter. There's a
Okay.
reason for me to have a big belly laugh every single day.
Yeah.
And I'm not letting that addiction go anytime soon. I'm enjoying this. Right? So
Love it. Love it. So, for people who are listening to this who would like to, first of all, connect with you, but also learn more about what you do, but also getting access to the book, is it did you say how to rewrite reality?
how to rewrite reality.
Nice. Where's the best place for people to connect with you?
My website is energeticmagic.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people can get their book there as well?
Well, you can get the book there, but on the site, it's just going to send you to Amazon.
Okay.
So
Amazon, geez, talking about belief. He must have had a big belief to be able to create Amazon. That is sensational. So Shiraz, absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. I am conscious of time. It's getting close to 10:30 in Toronto. So mate, it's been a fantastic conversation, and I greatly appreciate you sharing some very insightful principles and ideas. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast.
thank you so much for having me. It's been great.
Excellent. Thanks, mate. Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.